Alright guys, so in this video I played Assassin's Creed Valhalla in 2023, and this is the final video in the series where I play every single game in the Assassin's Creed franchise in order for the first time and then give my overall thoughts and a review on it after I finished. So Valhalla is the latest game in the franchise, and what's different with this one is that it isn't actually my first time playing it. All the other games in the series I hadn't touched before, and it was my first ever time playing it, but for some reason around a year and a half after the game released I thought I'd play Valhalla and see what it's all about, and I actually went on to finish it. And now, to be honest, unless it's a sequel to a previous game in the series like 2 Brotherhood and Revelations, it really doesn't matter if you play it in a different order, especially with the newer games. So this video I played it again on PC because it was on PlayStation last time, and I thought I'd check it out and see if my views have changed from almost 2 years ago, and I'll give an overall review like I always do in 2023 and see if it still holds up today. So if you're excited, then hit that like button down below, and you can subscribe to the channel if you're new and if you would like to. And this is the final video in the series. If you want to go back through or check out any other videos in the playlist, then that'll be in the description down below and also at the end of this video. Now let's get into it. So the game is set in 9th century England and Norway during, of course, the Viking Age, if you couldn't tell, which was of course a time of great historical significance, and you can once again learn a lot about that time period like all the previous games. You take on the role of Eivor, a Viking warrior who leads a Norseman clan on a quest in England, and the game's open world is richly detailed, spanning across various regions of England, including the Wessex Kingdoms, Mercia and East Anglia, as well as the Norwegian territories, which I still can't really pronounce, I always fumble it, so I'll just put the names on the screen. These are some examples, and the game's setting just looks incredible, especially the sun rays you see as you turn every corner, with just stunning landscapes and forests and mountains and lively settlements that make you feel really immersed in the Viking world. And although a lot of it is England, you only play the start of it in Norway, and I think because it's England, and I think this is probably the reason, because a lot of people say the game is sort of boring, and I'll get onto that, but for me I just love this setting because it is England, and of course I do live there, so I may be slightly biased, a bit like in Syndicate, but genuinely this is probably one of my favourite settings they've done. That's usually not the case with a lot of people, but I think it is because I just lived there and I love that setting. And the time period of Valhalla is accurately depicted, with attention to historical details and authenticity, and the game portrays the Vikings and Anglo-Saxons as well as the struggles that sort of went on with power at that time. And you also get to meet and learn about historical figures such as Alfred the Great and witness key events that take place in the story. The game also explores the Norse mythology and religion of the time, with a lot of references to different gods and myths and rituals that adds a lot of depth to the storytelling. The story of Assassin's Creed Valhalla was quite engaging and complex to me, offering a deep narrative that goes along with the overall lore of the franchise. Eivor, of course the main protagonist, is a strong and charismatic Viking leader. His main goal is sort of glory and revenge. Then as you follow his journey, you eventually explore England and Norway and reveal the truth about the Assassins and Templars, which, if you don't know by now, or you haven't played any of the previous games, they are basically the two societies or groups which are pretty much the heart of the Assassin's Creed series. And one of the strengths of the story in Valhalla is that it has well developed characters. Eivor has a strong personality with his own motivations, and of course he has conflicts as well. And on top of that, like in Odyssey, you are able to choose to play as a male or female Eivor, and their sort of choices and actions throughout the game will slightly affect the story's outcome. And depending on which one you choose, Eivor's personality is definitely shaped by their past, especially the key event in the childhood which starts the whole revenge story. And as you progress through the game, you find out Eivor's struggles and relationships with a lot of other characters, and their choices will also affect the outcome of the story. And the interactions with the other clan members and villains are well written and provide depth to not only Eivor's personality but of course the story as well. And you do sort of feel a sense of responsibility over Eivor's actions and decisions, which I did really like. Overall, Eivor is a well-crafted protagonist who adds depth to the story of Valhalla, and players who enjoy playing as a strong and more sort of independent character will likely find Eivor's journey compelling and enjoyable. And not just the protagonist, but also the supporting cast of characters are diverse and interesting to learn about, all of them having their own unique backstories, and again, like Odyssey, there are dialogue options to choose yourself which can impact the course of the story and definitely makes it a lot more interactive. However, there are criticism of the story's pacing. The game does have a fairly slow slow start with a lengthy prologue, and that may feel tedious to some players. It can also tend to switch focus and go off track at times with numerous subplots and side quests that can sort of dilute the main narrative, and although the main conflict between the Assassins and Templars is present in the game, like I mentioned, it's always been a central theme of the series, but I do feel it sort of takes a step back in this one, focusing more on Eivor's personal journey and the conflicts of that era, which I didn't mind because it was different and added a lot more, and I've definitely gotten very used to that narrative because of playing the games one after the other, so it was nice to have a switch, but it was still there, you know. Although, you know, to the other people it may disappoint them because they could have been expecting a more prominent Assassin Templar storyline. Another aspect that may be seen as a weakness for the story is the inclusion of supernatural elements, such as visions, which can feel confusing and may be seen as a sort of disconnection from the grounded historical setting of the game. These elements may not be appealing to everyone and could potentially disrupt the main immersion of the time period. And despite these criticisms, the story is really well put together and offers a fresh take on the Assassin's Creed lore, with its unique Viking setting and Eivor's compelling journey of discovery. And players who enjoy more rich narratives and well-drawn characters and want to learn about history will likely find the story of Valhalla engaging and enjoyable, like I did. Now, Valhalla has received several post-launch updates and expansions to the game which have added new content and features. One of the notable additions is the Wrath of the Druids expansion, which actually takes you to Ireland to unravel a whole new mystery, and it offers a fresh setting and new characters and additional gameplay mechanics, which just adds a lot of, you know, more gameplay for players who are looking for more content after completing the main story, which is quite lengthy anyway. Another addition is the Siege of Paris expansion, which then brings you to France to participate in, well, the Siege of Paris, funny enough. I can't really have a better way to describe it. And of course that's by the Vikings, and this expansion introduces a whole new storyline and enemies and weapons and expands the game's open world with new locations to explore. I haven't actually played any of the DLCs myself, so I can't really go full in depth with it, and a lot of this is just sort of the main game. And there's also even more, which is the Dawn of Ragnarok, which went down the more mythological route, and the addition of Discovery Tour, like they've done with all the RPG styles, which is honestly pretty good, bearing in mind the game is already massive and they're still adding more and updating it. And the post-launch updates have also introduced new game modes and quality of life improvements, as well as of course bug fixes, which have enhanced the overall gameplay experience and addressed some issues which were complained about at launch, though there is the downside of the additional content and how some players believe it should have been included in the base game, as it is, you know, an additional cost for players who may have already purchased the game. It may be seen as a sort of negative aspect where the DLCs might not be worth the extra money and they're overpriced. Now, Valhalla features a revamped combat system that combines both melee and range combat, offering players a variety of options to take down enemies. Players can check out a wide range of weapons, including axes and swords and shields and bows, each with its own unique playstyle and special abilities. Very similar to Odyssey, but I'd say it's probably roughly similar, maybe a bit more to choose from, as well as the combat being a lot more brutal and satisfying at times. So it definitely reflects the Viking theme of the game, with weighty and impactful animations that make each battle feel so intense compared to any other game. But this is mainly because they sort of strayed away from the stealthy and clean combat so much in this game and went all out with the Viking style. So then there is the complaints of it not being an Assassin's Creed game, which I'll add on to later. One of the strengths of the combat system is the ability to dual wield weapons, allowing players to combine different weapon types and create their own fighting style. It adds a layer of customization and versatility to the combat, like in Odyssey, as players can switch between weapons on the fly and adapt their playstyle to different situations. The variety of weapons and abilities also encourages players to sort of experiment with different strategies and find the approach that suits them best, which I found really fun. The game also features a progression system to level up Eivor, similar to all the RPG systems, like in Origins and Odyssey, and that does improve the combat abilities once again, as well as you being able to customize your gear with different upgrades, and this provides a sense of progression and accomplishment as players can, you know, become a lot more powerful and capable in combat. However, like all the RPG games, it can feel like a grind and time consuming to level up Eivor and unlock new abilities or upgrades, so some people may, you know, find that a bit annoying. Many gameplay features include the ability to raid camps and participate in large scale battles, also carrying on the feature of animal and fish hunting. collecting resources and, interacting with NPCs to add side quests and find out more stories. And the open world also has a very dynamic weather system that creates an immersive and visually appealing experience. Now the parkour system, which has of course been a staple of the series the whole time, it's obviously still here, and though the parkour system can at times feel sort of clunky and inconsistent, with occasional issues in movement, and that can be of course frustrating at times for some people, especially during the fast-paced combat situations, or when you're trying to move through complex environments and places where there's a lot of people and a lot of, stuff to climb onto. Another aspect of gameplay in Assassin's Creed Valhalla is the settlement management feature, which players can build and upgrade their own Viking settlement, which I found really fun, and it's actually quite easy to sort of get resources from the raids, and you can also recruit new members and engage in various activities to improve their clan. It adds a strategic element to the gameplay, I'd say, as players need to manage resources, like I said, and make decisions on how to upgrade their base. And it's not just, follow a mission after mission and it just upgrades your base for you. It's very customizable and you can interact with the characters in the settlement as well. Although it may not really add a lot to the story, it was cool and a very customizable feature to go through. In comparison to other games in the Assassin's Creed series, Valhalla does offer a fresh and unique setting in the Viking era, with improved combat, a vast open world and engaging gameplay elements. It builds upon the RPG elements introduced in Origins and Odyssey, whilst also returning to the series' roots with the Assassin v Templar conflict. Even though it isn't a lot, it may have some flaws in terms of its convoluted narrative and far-fetched mythological elements, it was seen in Odyssey, and it's definitely become a lot bigger in Valhalla. And there could be the repetitive gameplay that people might complain about, but it also does have its strengths to bring an immersive gameplay experience, as I've mentioned. And is Valhalla the worst game in the series? Of course it depends on personal preferences, but I loved it and it definitely isn't for me. The game has received mixed reviews from players and critics, with some praising it and the massive open world and improved combat system and characters, whilst others may despise it and the story and the gameplay and repetitive elements and stuff. It's definitely one of the most controversial games, I'd say. So what a way to end the series. Now the state of the game in 2023 and its overall worthiness of playing will also depend on personal preferences and expectations as a player. It does have its flaws, but Valhalla does remain a notable entry in the franchise, offering an immersive and action-packed experience, especially with the whole Viking theme, for players who enjoy historical open-world RPG games with a Viking twist, which I loved and really enjoyed, so I'd personally say it's worth playing in 2023. And also with this one, it's also the latest one in the series, so it was only like 2 and a bit years ago. And that was the final video in the Assassin's Creed series of when I play every single game in order for the first time. Of course this one was a slight exception because it wasn't actually my first time, but it has been a while since I played it and I thought I'd play it on PC this time, and it's a whole new experience with PC because it looks a whole lot better and runs a lot smoother. And they've also updated the game, like I said, with bug fixes, which I definitely saw before, not as much anymore. And yeah, that is everything. So until Mirage comes out, that will probably be the next Assassin's Creed video where I play it and review the whole game. But I'd say I've done a lot of Assassin's Creed recently with this whole series, so I'm going to take a bit of a break and I'll see what's next. Keep your eyes peeled on the channel and there will be more of these 2023, playing a game and reviewing it videos. It just won't be Assassin's Creed. And I hope you enjoyed it. Comment down below what game you want to see me review next, and that was Assassin's Creed Valhalla in 2023. And bye bye.